Hey everyone, and welcome to the first tutorial video about how to define geometries in the OpenBowShop 2D program. So let's learn it real quick. Before we begin to learn how to generate geometries in the OpenBowShop 2D program, you need to download it. You need to open MATLAB, and obviously you need to put your directory to open the code, which is kind of obvious. But anyway, so let's go ahead and open the GUI. We're going to type the following things. Open BowShop 2D main. So we have our GUI here. So we have two major parts: geometry input part and the output part, which contains the window where we're going to see our geometry, our meshing, and some of our results, and the text box where we're going to have some outputs, some important information about our geometries, meshing, and some free string conditions if needed. So let's begin to draw something. To draw something, you need to follow three simple steps. Step 1. You need to generate your characteristic length. What does it mean? Let's explain. If I put a number and click hit length input, the only thing I get is a line from 0, 0 to 1, 0, which is exactly the length of my geometry. This is the length about which I'm gonna create my shape. Like in the logo, characteristic length is the length from 0, 0 to whatever length I input. Step 2 can just tells you about the parts of the geometry you have, about the sides where you want to create your geometry. The top part is above the characteristic line and bottom is below. Step 3, we're going to input the curve. We have a drop-down menu which contains different geometries. And we also have the redo function, which can erase our geometry if we don't like it. And we also have a clear all function to erase everything completely. How is it going to work? Well, let's see. I want to input linear function. We always begin our geometry from the leading edge at the point 0, 0. And to create linear function, you need only 2 points. So I can input any number, say 0.5 and 0.5. So I created my line from 0 to 0.5. Don't worry about this line. This is some kind of feature of new MATLAB, which actually is good because you can really see where your top and bottom is right now. So I decided not to erase it. And the text box tells you where your final point is. So on bottom it's 0, 0. We didn't do anything yet. On top it's 0.5, 0.5. To create the bottom part, you just need to switch the radio button to the bottom semi-surface and input some values like 0.3, 0.2, for example. You don't need to input negative numbers because step 2 works for you to create negative numbers of y. Elliptic function works in the same fashion, besides that you need to generate semi-major and semi-minor axes where A is along x and B is along y. Your initial point begins from the final point of your geometry you have just drawn. We have just drawn. So let's try something. 0.3 and 0.5, for example. So we began from point 2. We went down 0.3 below, the previous geometry and point 2 along. So that's how you create it. Sorry, point 3, it was point 3. If you want to erase it, you just click redo, you erase it. So, pretty straightforward. I don't like everything what I drew, so let's erase everything completely and input something different. Still, let's check. We have a shape length of 1, let it be, and we're gonna create exponential function. It works in the same fashion. You just input some numbers according to the formula. You can use any power function. So 1, say 0.5, and 1. Create a geometry real quick. Same thing for the bottom. Log function works in the same fashion, except for the fact that your initial point is 0, 0. So I shifted this log function, natural log, because the shape it seems useful for some kind of blown body geometries, possibly. That's why I shifted it. User-defined function is the feature where you can put your function completely, any function. But you gotta be careful here. Why? Because OpenBowShock 2D cannot generate shapes with trailing edge. Or to be more accurate, it can generate, but you will not be able to calculate it correctly. So the only types of shapes that work here are some kind of mostly blunt bodies, and they are usually kind of open bodies. So you don't have anything like a trailing edge or nothing which approaches to trailing edge. So examples like circular cylinder, half of it, something like this, or the logo picture. Yep. So let's input something to test it. And I want to put x squared. Yes, quadratic function until the end. So I get it. That's how it works. Let's redo everything. Load curve function works in the following way. We have our input document in the directory. It's in the folder input/output, where you can input your coordinates of top part and bottom part, and you can also define your final point where you want your geometry to finish. So the code is going to do the following thing. It's going to read all your numbers. It's going to create a function, mathematical algebraic function, which is going to be plotted until x2, which you define. That's how it works. So you just prescribe your numbers, put your value, click plot, get your numbers. Same thing. So that's pretty much everything about the code, and I hope this tutorial was useful to you. If you have any comments or any wishes, please let me know. If you find some bugs as well, please let me know. I'll fix them and we'll make this code better. And the next video will be about how to create the mesh for our geometry. See you in a minute.